In the 21st century, bank robbers don't wear masks or carry guns. To steal billions today, all you really need is a laptop, a social media account, and a story big enough that people stop asking questions. We like to think we're too smart to be fooled. Scams like this feel like history, the kind of thing that happened back in the 1920s with Charles Ponzi. But the digital age built a new kind of con artist. They promised to cure disease, to mint digital gold, to build trucks that would save the planet. They wore hoodies instead of suits, spoke on stage at top universities, and somehow got the smartest investors in the world to hand over everything. Every one of these companies ended the same way. They got impossibly big, and then they collapsed to nothing. These are the 5 biggest frauds of the modern era, how they pulled it off, where it happened, and the exact moment each one fell apart. Our first story starts in Palo Alto, California, in 2003. A 19-year-old Stanford dropout named Elizabeth Holmes walked onto a Silicon Valley stage and made a promise that stunned the medical world. Her startup, Theranos, had supposedly built a small black box called the Edison. Holmes said it could run more than 200 medical tests, everything from a basic cholesterol check to cancer screening, using a single drop of blood from a finger prick. No big needles, no vials. People loved it. By 2014, former Secretaries of State George Shultz and Henry Kissinger were sitting on her board. Investors poured in hundreds of millions of dollars. Walgreens and Safeway signed deals to put the machines in their stores. The press called her the next Steve Jobs. At its peak, Theranos was worth $9 billion. There was just one problem. The technology didn't work. The Edison was a myth. It came apart on October 15, 2015, when journalist John Carreyrou published an exposé in the Wall Street Journal. Whistleblowers inside the company told him the truth. Theranos was secretly running its tests on ordinary commercial machines made by Siemens, hidden in a back lab, and watering down patients' blood to stretch the tiny samples. The results came back wrong, and real people were told they had illnesses they didn't have. The collapse was fast. Regulators moved in, the labs were shut down, and the $9 billion valuation was gone. In January 2022, Holmes was convicted of federal wire fraud and sentenced to more than 11 years in prison. Our second story takes us to South Korea and the world of crypto in the spring of 2022. Kwon was a brilliant, deeply arrogant young developer who ran a company called Terraform Labs. He built 2 tokens that leaned on each other, UST and Luna. UST was an algorithmic stablecoin, meaning it was supposed to stay worth exactly $1 through a complicated math link to Luna. On paper, it looked like a machine that printed money and could never break. Kwon had a cult following that called itself the Lunatics. He taunted his critics online, telling people who doubted him that he doesn't debate the poor and that their poverty was temporary. At its peak, Terra and Luna together were worth more than $40 billion, and plenty of people called it the most successful project in crypto. Then, in the second week of May 2022, it broke. A wave of big, coordinated sell-offs pushed UST off its $1 peg. The math that held it together went into a death spiral. To defend the peg, the system started printing trillions of new Luna tokens, and that flood of new coins wiped out Luna's value almost overnight. In 7 days, about $40 billion was gone. Crypto funds went under, and ordinary people who trusted Kwon lost everything. He ran, and the manhunt went international. It ended in March 2023 at an airport in Montenegro, where he was caught trying to board a private jet on a fake Costa Rican passport. He was arrested and later extradited to face fraud charges in the United States. Our third story is one of the boldest of them all.
Phoenix, Arizona, 2020. Trevor Milton ran an electric vehicle startup called Nikola Motor, and he claimed he'd built a hydrogen-powered semi-truck, the Nikola One, that would clean up global shipping and bury Tesla's upcoming trucks. The hype worked. Nikola went public in June 2020, and within days it was worth over $30 billion. A company that had never sold a single product was suddenly worth more than Ford. To shut his critics up, Milton put out a slick promo video called Nikola One in Motion, showing the truck flying down a desert highway. It looked like the real thing. A few days later, on September 10, 2020, it fell apart.
A research firm called Hindenburg Research published a report calling Nikola an elaborate fake. The biggest bombshell was that famous video. According to Hindenburg, the truck had no working fuel cell, no electric motor, and no drivetrain. It couldn't actually drive. So to shoot the ad, Milton's team towed the dead prototype to the top of a long, steep hill in the Utah desert, released the brakes, and let it coast down on gravity alone. They angled the camera to make the road look flat and sped up the footage. The fallout was immediate. The stock crashed, billions in value gone. Milton was indicted by a federal grand jury, and in October 2022, he was found guilty of fraud and sentenced to 4 years in prison. Our fourth story crosses the Atlantic to Munich, Germany. Wirecard was a big financial technology company that processed electronic payments for millions of businesses around the world. By 2018, it was the pride of European tech, worth more than $24 billion, big enough to bump Commerzbank out of Germany's top stock index, the DAX. It was run by a charismatic CEO, Markus Braun, and a mysterious, jet-setting chief operating officer named Jan Marsalek. They looked unstoppable. For years, though, skeptical investors and reporters at the Financial Times kept saying the numbers didn't add up. Wirecard claimed it was earning hundreds of millions in profit through shadowy payment partners scattered across Asia. And every time critics raised a flag, the German government actually defended the company, even banning investors from betting against the stock. The reckoning came on June 18, 2020. Wirecard's auditor, EY, finally refused to sign off on the annual accounts. There was a huge hole in the books. The company said nearly 2 billion euros in cash, basically all of its real profit, was sitting in 2 trust accounts in the Philippines. When the auditors checked with the banks there, the answer was simple. The money didn't exist. And it never had. The whole $24 billion company fell apart in under 48 hours. It declared bankruptcy and wiped out the savings of thousands of ordinary investors. Braun was arrested fast. But the strangest part belongs to Jan Marsalek. The moment the fraud went public, he boarded a private jet, flew to Belarus, and disappeared. He's still one of the most wanted fugitives in the world. Our fifth and final story takes us into the wild world of marketing and pure hype. In 2014, a glamorous Bulgarian woman with an Oxford degree, Dr. Ruja Ignatova, launched a project called OneCoin and sold it as the Bitcoin killer. She toured the world like a rock star, packing out Wembley Arena in London and telling roaring crowds that OneCoin was the future of money. Her timing was perfect. Bitcoin was climbing fast, and regular people were terrified of missing the next big thing. Ruja promised OneCoin was easier, safer, and a sure path to getting rich early. Between 2014 and 2016, more than $4 billion poured in from investors in Germany, China, the UK, and the United States. People remortgaged their homes and emptied their savings to buy in. But underneath the glamour, the truth was unbelievable. OneCoin didn't even have a blockchain.
No public ledger, no mining, no actual coin. The price was just a number that Ruja's employees typed into a fake database. It was an old Ponzi scheme dressed up in tech buzzwords. It broke on October 25, 2017. Ruja was supposed to headline a huge OneCoin event in Lisbon, and she never showed. With investigators closing in, she boarded a Ryanair flight from Sofia, Bulgaria to Athens, Greece. When the plane landed, she walked out of the terminal and vanished. Nobody has seen her since. The FBI put her on its 10 most wanted list with a $5 million reward. Some think she's hiding on a yacht with a new face.
Others think the people she crossed made sure she'd never be found. The money is gone, and all she left behind is ruined lives. Thanks for watching. If you got something out of this, hit like, subscribe for more breakdowns of modern history, and tell me in the comments which of these 5 frauds you think was the most daring. See you in the next one.